Hi guys, I'm going to go over with you solving quadratic equations using the factoring method. So you want to grab a pencil and paper because you're going to do some practice problems with me. After this, you should be able to complete the assignments on Canvas. So I'm going to share my screen with you. Get yourself a pencil and paper and let's take a look. Okay, so this is solving with factoring. The very first thing you're going to do is always look for the greatest common factor, okay? And well, first of all, actually make sure it's in standard form. It's equal to 0, so it's in standard form. So now we're going to look for the common factor. I see I can divide both of those by a 4x. So I'll take out 4x. That's my greatest common factor. So 4x squared divided by 4x leaves me x. And negative 12x divided by 4x leaves me negative 3, okay? If you were to divide them both by 4x, this is what you'd have left over. So then the next step, remember, is to set each factor equal to 0, and then you solve each factor, or solve each equation for x. So when I divide both sides by 4, here we get x equals 0, and if I add 3 to both sides, here I get x equals 3. So my two solutions are 0 and 3. Okay? Okay, this one is for you guys to try. 3x squared plus 18x equals 0. Okay, you guys try that one. Okay, so first thing, look for your common factor. In this case, it's a 3x. So one set of parentheses. 3x times what is 3x squared? That's x. And 3x times what is 18x? That's 6. I can check it. 3x times x is 3x squared. 3x times 6 is 18x, so I know I'm good. Make your little equations and then solve each one. So when I divide by 3, x is 0. And when I subtract 6, x is negative 6. Okay? Here's the next type. X squared minus 6x plus 8 equals 0. Again, first thing to look for, is there a common factor? In this case, there is not. I see that I have a trinomial, so I'm going to factor it into two binomials. This is when you can use your diamond or your X method. We're looking for two numbers that multiply to make 8, but add up to negative 6. Okay? Well, I know a 4 times a 2 makes an 8, but when I add them, it gives me positive 6. So these must both be negative, because a negative times a negative will make the positive 8, and a negative 4 plus a negative 2 will make a negative 6. So now I know it's x minus 4 and x minus 2. Again, make your equations. And then when you solve them, here I have x equals 4. And here we have x equals 2. Okay? Okay, this one's for you guys. Okay, oops. Look for a common factor. There isn't one, so then you're looking for the two numbers that multiply to 24 and add up to negative 11. You're doing this one. Come here, Blackie. Come here, baby. I'm going to help these guys solve their quadratic equation. Huh? You want to help them solve their equation? Okay, so hopefully we figured out that it's negative 8 and negative 3. Negative 8 times negative 3 is positive 24. Negative 8 plus negative 3 is negative 11. So we have x minus 8 and x minus 3. Make our equations. So x equals 8 and x equals 3. Okay? Okay, stepping it up a little bit. 2x squared plus 8x plus 6 equals 0. Okay, what are you going to look for first? That's right, greatest common factor. In this case, it's a 2. Can't be 2x because there's no x there. So you factor out a 2 first, and that leaves us with x squared, 8 divided by 2, 4x, and 6 divided by 2 is 3. Okay, so there's our first part. Now we're only concerned with the trinomial in the middle here. So we'll factor that. Again, we can use our diamond. We're looking for two numbers that multiply to 3, but add to 4. Okay, so yep, 3 times 1 is 3, and 3 plus 1 is 4. So we have x plus 3 and x plus 1. We don't need to make this into an equation because there's no variable with it. Only the factors that have the variables get made into equations. So then this one's going to give us negative 3, and this one's going to give us negative 1. Okay, this one is for you guys. Okay, again, look for your greatest common factor. And then go from there. Okay, so here we go. When you divide by 3, you're left with x squared. When you divide by 3, you're left with 3x. And when you divide by 3, we're left with minus 10. So now we're looking for two numbers that multiply to make negative 10 and add up to 3. So that, oops. 5 times 2 is 10, but if I add those, I don't get a 3. So I know one of them has to be negative, and I want my answer when I add them to be positive. So I need to have more positives than negatives. So I know the 2 has to be negative. 5 times negative 2 is negative 10. 5 plus negative 2 is 3. So those are the factors. There's the equations. So we get negative 5 and 2. Okay, one more type to check out, and then you're off to do your assignments. Okay, first thing we need to do is put it into standard form. So we need to bring the 25 over to the other side. It's a positive 25, so we're subtracting it over to the other side. And now we have x squared minus 25 equals 0. You might recognize this as a difference of squares, or you might just do, I need two numbers that have to multiply to make negative 25. And there's no x term, so they have to add up to 0. Well, I know 5 times 5 is 25. One of them has to be negative so that they multiply to negative 25. And then I know when I add those together, I get 0. So it's x plus 5 and x minus 5. Okay, these are two perfect squares. The square root of x squared is x, and the square root of 25 is 5. Another way to look at it. And we make our equations. So we have x equals negative 5 and x equals 5. Okay. Okay, again, we need to make this into standard form by bringing the 16 over to the other side. It's a positive 16, so that means we subtract it from both sides. Now in this case, we do have a common factor. 4 can go into both of those terms. So if I factor out a 4, 4x squared divided by 4 is x squared, and 16 divided by 4 is 4. Now I'm going to factor this. That is also a difference of squares. I need two numbers that multiply to make negative 4, but add up to 0. So x minus 2 and x plus 2. There's my two equations. So my answers are going to be 2 and negative 2. Okay, I hope this helps. Now go do your assignments.